Okay, we'll try making this video again. My older two girls are being pain in my butt. But anyways, try again. Start again. Okay, this is the birth story. I'm exhausted, as I'm sure you can tell. But anyways, I'm going to try and get this done. My due date was November 10th, and I had my final doctor's appointment that morning. I was 4 centimeters dilated, only 30% effaced, and she was still floating up and down, as pleased, which she would literally go from in my crotch to in my ribs within the same hour, and I was beginning to think she would never come out because of it. The doctor said that my bag of waters was ballooning, so that was encouraging. I had her do a stripping to see if we could get things going. It was actually my third stripping. And yeah, the other ones didn't work. And I had been taking some homeopathic stuff, and that didn't work either. It just caused false labor, but oh well. She obviously wasn't ready to come out. So yeah, when the doctor did the stripping, she said that things unstuck very easily. But I didn't want to get too hopeful. But yeah, it was like hoping, just the same, without getting too hopeful. After we left the appointment, I had to go have my final blood test to check my iron levels. I don't know why they left it till the last minute, but anyway, it seemed like they forgot, because they also had forgotten to tell me my results for the GBS test, and I was positive. But anyway, the first time I've ever been positive. So, off to the hospital we went, and I had started contracting pretty much immediately after the stripping. The bumps along the road were really unpleasant on my cervix, and then walking through the halls of the hospital was rather difficult. I had to stop for a bit and wait for Jay to come back from paying for parking, because I couldn't keep walking. I felt like she was literally gonna fall out of me as I was walking down the hall. So I was in a hurry to get out of there before I accidentally birthed her at the hospital. I actually had nothing to worry about. She wasn't coming out that day. My contractions were somewhat painful but very random. They were far apart and close together. No pattern at all. And then they disappeared, leaving me feeling very frustrated. I couldn't understand what she was waiting for. I went to bed early, but I couldn't sleep because I was so frustrated. I got back up and ate some honey-dew melon dipped in chocolate, and then I went back to bed a little after midnight. It was November 11th. As I was finally falling asleep around 1, the contractions started back up. They were somewhat painful again, and after every contraction I had to go to the bathroom. No different than my 2 weeks of prodromal labor. I started timing contractions for the hell of it. I didn't expect things to go anywhere, but anyway, I was curious. They were about 10 minutes apart, lasting 45 seconds or so. Again, just like my prodromal labor. So, don't get my hopes up. Just before 2 a.m., after contraction, I felt pressure. Either I had to potty again, or it was the baby on the way. After my experience with Ariel, and the pressure actually being her head, I felt the need to check before going to the bathroom. When I got to the bathroom, a contraction started, so I stood in front of the toilet and waited for it to pass. I sat down and inserted my finger to check if there was a head there, and all of a sudden, splash, either my waters broke or I peed myself. Here we go again, like last time. There was a gush and then nothing. There was no leaking no matter what position I was in. I squatted and coughed, I forced, I moved around, whatever. Nothing came out. So I went back to bed and waited for more contractions to time, but none came. A few minutes of laying in bed, and TMI, but I'm not leaving out any details, I felt like I needed to fart. So I tried to fart, and instead of a fart, I soaked my underwear. I knew at that point that my waters had definitely broken. I got out of bed really quickly but carefully to not get the bed wet, and I actually managed to not get a drop on my bed. Go me. With every step I took, more water would gush out. I was so excited. I headed downstairs to wake Jay up and let him know. So he got up and he started washing laundry and doing random other things that he felt the need to do. I waddled my leaky butt to the living room to call out my sister. She was supposed to be here for the birth, so she got here about an hour or so later. It was probably going on 4 in the morning or something like that. Oh, so then we waited and we waited. The contractions didn't start back up. I paced around the house and waited some more. My sister fell asleep on the couch, and so Jay and I decided to go upstairs and try and get some rest ourselves. I didn't get very much sleep, and of course the night before that I didn't sleep well either, so that was nice. I had been having one night of good sleep, one night of crappy sleep, and of course the night before all this started I had crappy sleep. But anyway, all day on the 11th my contractions would come very randomly, all somewhat painful but zero pattern, and it was so frustrating. With every hour that went by with no real labor, the more discouraged I got. Being GBS positive, the internet said that I had 18 hours before the risk of infection to her would increase. So that made me a little nervous, but it made Jay a lot more nervous. My unassisted birth group, the ladies told me that the risks were highly exaggerated and not to worry, so I tend to believe them. They seemed very knowledgeable. So I stayed fairly calm about it, but at the same time I really wanted contractions to start up. A bit before supper time, my sister headed home to make supper for her family. I was told to call her back if I needed her. As the time went by, I could see my unassisted birth slipping away. I was bawling and feeling like a failure at the thought of having to go to the hospital. Knowing that my parents wanted exactly that to happen made my possible transfer affect me even more. I couldn't let that happen, but I agreed to transfer had active labor not started by the time we reached the 24-hour mark. So I went on my local mommy forum and complained some more, and a friend brought over her exercise ball because my mom was still at my mom's. My sister had to bring it for me. So she brought that over, and she brought her electric breast pump over for me to try to get the contractions going. I also took a few doses of glucose. I can never pronounce that word, so hey, if I'm not saying it right, oh well. I think I started using the pump and ball around 6 or 6:30, but I'm not exactly sure. I pumped for a half hour straight, and the contractions did start back up, and they were getting more painful. I laid down for a bit, but the contractions hurt too much to actually sleep. I came back downstairs, and I started timing contractions around 8:30 p.m. They were consistently 5 minutes apart and lasting 45 to 50 seconds. I was thrilled to be experiencing that horrible pain. My unassisted birth was saved. I was like literally thrilled every time I'd hit the peak of my contraction and be owing and crying. I was so happy to have those pains. I filled the tub up around. I started around 9:20. I was in by 9:30. I called my sister back, but she wasn't feeling well and decided to stay home to sleep. So Jay called his mom to come sit in our living room just in case we needed to make an emergency transfer. The dogs barked and barked and barked when she got here. It was really annoying on my video, but anyway. Jay and I discussed the plan. He asked questions about the important notes and the tinctures I had so that he'd know when to do what and whatever else. I couldn't imagine not having the water to labor in. Land birth is not for me. I really don't know how I did it with the first two. The contractions are so much easier to take in the water. I was experiencing back labor. She had her back to my left side rather. and I discovered that my cervix was behind her head. I needed to be more forward. So it was making labor take longer than necessary. I had Jay go to Facebook and ask for positioning tips to get things into place. Pardon me, I have a bit of a stuffed up nose. I'm really dry in here with the heating. So yeah, I was told that all fours was a good idea, and I had been doing that, but it didn't seem to be helping. But I did it for a little longer, and it still didn't help much. My older sister had the same thing happen with my nephew, and the midwife had to pretty much pull her cervix forward during a contraction. So knowing that detail, I decided to try to do it myself, but it was way too painful the first time I tried. And so I stopped trying and continued with the different positions in hopes of it moving. So yeah, I couldn't deal with all the extra contractions that were pretty much nothing. I knew had my cervix been more forward, she would have probably been here already. So I decided to try again, pulling my own cervix forward. It was a little more forward when I reached in, but not enough at all. So when the contraction started, I did not let go until my cervix literally slipped away from my finger itself. And in that same contraction, the pressure hit. My cervix had moved, and she was on her way. I was in a kneeling position, my left knee and right foot in the bottom of the tub, right knee up. There was so much pressure, and the ring of fire hurt so bad. I wanted to almost lay back in the tub and birth like I did for Ariel, because the pressure was like almost non-existent, and it didn't really hurt at all when I pushed her out. But I knew that could possibly lead to more bleeding, so I stayed upright anyways and dealt with it. At one point, her head was about a quarter of the way out, and she started to move her head, and I really, really hate that feeling when I'm pushing. And she ended up slipping back up inside, and she flailed around, and I asked her what she was doing. I assumed she went back in to get into a better position. It took me a total of 9 minutes from the start of that pressure before she was born. So when she came out, she slightly bonked her face into the bottom of the bathtub. I felt a little bad, but there was no marks left or anything. The second her shoulders got through, she flew out. There was not much I could do about it. I told Jay to check the time as I lifted her out of the water and unwrapped the cord from her shoulder. She was born at 12:07 a.m. on November 12th. I then asked Jay to give me my motherwort tincture to prevent hemorrhaging. She coughed pretty much immediately. She didn't cry right away, but she was pink and perfect and doing wonderfully. She was so much better looking than what Ariel was when she was born. Ariel was limp and blue and not breathing, and it was pretty scary, so I was relieved. I noticed right away that she looked like her big brother, and I was shocked because from the ultrasound picture she was like identical to Ariel, so I was expecting her to look like Ariel, and she does not. She cried so loud after she started crying, and I was so proud to have birthed her all by myself with her daddy by my side, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world, and how it was meant to be. And I wish I had done the same for my other babies, but it's too late now. I've learned though that it's definitely the way to birth. While waiting for the placenta, we covered her with a towel, and Jay dumped cups of water over it to try to keep her warm. The water had cooled off a bit, even though I had added hot water not too long before the birth. So, yeah. The placenta came fairly quickly. It was only about 5 to 10 minutes after she was born that it was out. So, yay. Once I was out, Jay gave me a dose of shepherd's purse to help to clot the blood and contract the uterus. More hemorrhage prevention. And we got the cord clipped, and Jay cut it and removed the placenta from the bathtub. We shut my camera off at that point, and I passed Astoria to Jay, and I got myself dried off and out of the tub. I sat on the toilet and nursed her right away, and Jay cut me off a piece of placenta to put into my cheek while I made calls to my parents to let them know that we were doing great and that their fears were for nothing, as I had told them over and over again. I tried to eat that piece of placenta, but it was like, literally felt like I was chewing on a cheek, so I couldn't do it and I spat it out. I did encapsulate it though. I got dressed and we headed out to the kitchen to weigh her and dress her. So we got to meet her mammy, and then 4 hours after the birth, I decided to go to the hospital because, well, it wasn't entirely 4 hours later, it was 4 hours by the time we left to go to the hospital. We had to wait for my sister to come to stay with the other kids. I decided to go to the hospital to make sure my bleeding was normal, because after I'd been sitting for 2 hours, when I got up, like, a lot of blood gushed out and it seemed to be continuously dripping. So I haven't had a normal birth since Aiden, and he's 7 years old, so I couldn't remember what was normal. And so I decided it would be best to just go and be sure that everything was okay. I didn't want to risk anything and end up bleeding to death. So we went, and the doctors were complete crazy people, because my bleeding was normal, she was healthy, but they wanted us to stay to monitor her temperature and stuff because of my GBS not being treated, and they threatened to call the CPS people on us if we didn't stay. Wait, I'm almost done, sweetie. So that was fun. Mommy. But anyways, I'm not gonna get into that. So she's a whole 7 pounds 10 ounces, 19 inches long. She had a 13.5-inch head. So other than her head being a little bigger than Ariel's, she was my tiniest baby. So I'm thrilled with our birth experience and highly recommend unassisted birth. And we will definitely only have unassisted births in the future, because even though she was supposed to be our last and Jay was supposed to get a vasectomy, we both decided we want at least one more. So, more babies, yay! Oh boy. Okay, I got a tickle in my throat. Eyes are watering. But I got the video done. Thanks for watching. I'm going to give you a little peek at her and edit this into my birth video. She has red hair. Just sleeping away. Pretty girl. I'll attach pictures too.